Jon Lovett is a former speechwriter for Barack Obama, a progressive activist, and co-host of a global hit political podcast. Sounds serious, right? Yet out of the four hosts of the popular Pod Save America, Lovett is known as the funny one. He's a comedian, appeared on a season of Survivor, wrote a political sitcom that lasted one season, and even worked on Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom. I'm Conrad Marshall, and from the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, this is Season 7 of Good Weekend Talks, featuring weekly in-depth conversations with fascinating people. Lovett joins us ahead of Pod Save America's Australian tour for a chat about everything from how Australia should deal with Trump to how Democrats, and America generally, are coping with the increasingly confronting events of Trump's second term. Today's episode is hosted by Good Weekend senior writer Mel Fyfe, and just a heads up, the discussion contains some strong language.
Thanks, Conrad. And welcome, Jon.
Thanks for having me.
I'm actually very excited about you being on the pod because my partner thinks that you're the most intelligent one of the Pod Save America team. Not to throw any shade on them, but he's your biggest fan. So
what great judgment your partner has. It must be nice to be with somebody that has such exquisite taste.
It's amazing. I'm fascinated by your background because, of course, you did a degree in mathematics, and then you've got the maths part of your brain, and then you've got words.
That's right.
You're a speechwriter, and then you're funny. So you're like the triple threat.
Yeah, I can't dance or sing, so if I am a triple threat, it wouldn't be from those. I've had a strange path to where I'm at. I've always felt like I had a lot of different interests, and I was absolutely not the best person at math. The other students that I did math with were extraordinarily gifted at math, and I felt like I could kind of keep up. And I do think that math was like a great skill to bring into speechwriting because, especially in politics, you're trying to find the simplest way to explain complicated issues. And math is great training for that because you can't kind of get it. You can't fake your way through it. Either you understand it or you don't. And the harder the concept, the more work and focus it takes to figure out how to explain it simply. And so that was really good training for politics. And then it turns out actually all you have to do in politics is just make up whatever the fuck you want. Is that okay to say? Are we bleeping that?
I think we're going to be okay with that. That's all right. I mean, you're talking to an Australian audience. We swear
That's
a lot.
Here's what I think. I'm counting on it. Yes, I am excited. Australia is filled with people who are good hanging, so I'm just counting on that. I'm counting on that.
Absolutely. We're pretty relaxed in general, I'd say, maybe too relaxed. But I wanted to ask you about your time in the Obama White House, but more specifically, why did you leave after the first term? Why did you not do the second term? Honestly,
my answer has really changed. I know why I thought I was leaving. And now looking back, I know why I did. So at the time, as you noted, like I had done some math, I had done comedy, and now I was doing speechwriting. And I felt really proud that I got to be part of the White House speechwriting team for President Obama. And that's where I met Jon Favreau, my co-host of Pod Save America. That's where I met Tommy and also Dan Pfeiffer and Ben Rhodes and a lot of great people. But I'd really felt this pull towards comedy writing and doing stand-up. And I thought, I'm running out of time to be a young stand-up comedian. It was like a quarter life crisis. Like now I look back, it sounds ridiculous. Like I was 29 and I thought, well, if I'm not a comedian by 29, I'll never have been a young stand-up because I'm going to be 30. That's so old. And now I look back and I realize, you idiot, you had this amazing job and you felt comfortable. And, when you're young and you feel comfortable, you think something must be wrong. Like I had always been chasing and ambitious and trying to go for the next thing. And so I felt this pull to go for the next thing. And I have no regrets about it. But looking back, I don't think it was a decision made with world-class rationality because I do look back and really love the time I got to spend as a speechwriter. But I don't know. I'm not really. People think a couple years ahead in their careers. I think that that's a really impressive thing to do. That's never been my style.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you did leave, tell me about that period, because you did a sitcom. Is that right?
Yes. So when I was in the White House, I wrote all kinds of very serious speeches. And in part because I did have that math background, be that, of a sort. I never got any advanced degree, but I did a lot of math. I did really enjoy the challenge of writing about economic policy and financial policy. And I'm a quick writer. And so I ended up doing a lot of those very technical and serious speeches, which I love to do. But I also worked on the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I don't know how familiar your audience is, but we have this tradition where the president goes before a lot of members of Congress and members of the media and big time celebrities and basically does roast jokes, roasts the Republicans and the Democrats and him or herself and the press. And I loved getting to work on those. So I wrote all kinds of jokes for that over the years. And President Obama had incredible delivery. And I felt like we really, like, year after year, we felt like we had to bring it. He never misses. And so when I left, I really wanted to think about, like, how do I take this experience I've had in politics and in comedy and in writing and translate it into something. And so I went out to LA and I thought I'd have a chance to do stand-up and try my hand at writing it, but I ended up getting onto this fast-moving train and working on a sitcom about a first family. It was a very silly but perfect show that only had one perfect season called 1600 Penn, but it was this. I felt like I've been very, very fortunate, and I highly recommend to people to be in the right place at the right time. It's the best thing you could do for your career is have extraordinary luck. But as a speechwriter, I had been thrown into the deep end as a speechwriter for Hillary Clinton. I was 23, 24. Now I'm a speechwriter at the White House. I'm completely in over my head and faking it till I make it. And then I think, I'll have a chance to catch my breath and learn the ropes. And then all of a sudden I get to work on this TV show. And so it was this trial by fire of learning about television while in the middle of this process of a show that's moving forward, which was, again, like an extraordinary experience. But looking back on it, I was so in over my head. But that was my dream. I wanted to, a friend of mine had said this, that there are a lot of people that they think of themselves as being a professional who's funny, but maybe they're not professionally funny. And I genuinely didn't know. I didn't know which one I would be and if I could make it. And I wanted to try. And I wanted to try. What would happen if I left politics and gave this a shot? Like, politics was always an awkward fit for me. I don't belong in an office with a suit on. I can't do it. It's just like I don't fit in. And so I wanted to try this other world where I thought I might have a better chance. And I loved it. And even though the show didn't succeed either critically, commercially, or with audiences, which are, you need one of the three, honestly, if you're going to survive, I still love that I got to do it.
Yeah. And Pod Save America, I mean, it's turned into a massive show. I mean, what's the reach of the show now? Do you have any idea about that?
I don't really, I think I prefer to think of it as talking amongst my friends. And then it turns out that there are a fair number of people listening to it, which is great. Look, so it's funny, as I said, I've gotten to do all these disparate things. And then John and Tommy and we'd kind of gone our separate ways career-wise, but we're watching the run-up to the 2016 presidential election, and we're really feeling frustrated, both as people that had been in politics, but also as news consumers, feeling like there was a lot of great reporting, but there weren't people that talked about politics the way we did, that didn't treat it like a game or didn't treat people like observers rather than participants. There just wasn't a place that felt like it sounded like what we sounded like when we were talking about it. And so we started a podcast. And after the election, we decided to devote ourselves full time to figuring out how to build a show and a network for people that felt scared, nervous, angry, frustrated, but still wanting to find a way to be useful, who weren't willing to give in to the kind of cynicism that we were seeing. And so that's why we launched Pod Save America. And we didn't really know very much about business. We didn't know very much about what kind of business model we would need to succeed. But we had this idea that there were other people that felt like us. And then we launched this show with Dan Fyfe, who also was the President Obama's communications director. And there were a lot of people who felt the same way we did. And we didn't feel like our job was to know what to do and how to solve what was happening in our country. But we thought the best way to figure it out would be to have a place where everybody who felt like we did could come, and we could talk about it, think about it, talk to smart people, build a community. And that's what we've been doing ever since. And it's been incredibly gratifying that we have this platform where we get to talk about what's important in a way that feels true to us and help other people who feel the same way, not just commiserate, because commiserating is great. We all got to commiserate, but also find a way to use that anger for good purpose, to volunteer and donate and find ways to push back. And I'm really proud of it because here we are, over 8 years later, and we've built this network. We've built Vote Save America, this activism hub. We've built out a community of people that are part of it, and we have all these other great voices and hosts that are a part of it. And we had no idea when we launched that here we'd be all this year, and we get to go to Australia. What an amazing and lucky thing that even in this dark moment, having this feeling as though I get to be part of something that I do truly believe has value and is part of this big network, not just our network, but other people that are trying to collectively push back. And by the way, demonstrate for people in Australia that Donald Trump may be our president, but America is still filled with Americans.
Yeah. I mean, it's been quite something, I think, to watch from Australia. And I was going to ask you, because in Australia, we have this constant political struggle where we really rely on the Americans, obviously, for defense, trade.
Yeah.
And we sort of don't know what to do about Trump. We don't know how to handle him. I think the Labor Party here, they're trying to be nice, but then there's things that happen that are obviously against our Australian values as they are against, you would say, American values. What would you say? Like, if you were an advisor to Prime Minister Albanese, what would you say to how to handle him?
So it's funny. So a friend of mine was a longtime advisor for Hillary Clinton, and he is a really smart communications strategist. And he's a very different person than Donald Trump, but he has a similar kind of feral genius about the way the media works. And so Hillary Clinton tapped him to play Trump in the debates. So when Hillary Clinton was preparing for the debates, Philippe played Trump. And he really goes full method, up to and including eating McDonald's a couple days a week to put on pounds. And he did the same. He did it again for Kamala Harris. He stepped in when Kamala Harris was preparing. And what's interesting is since then, others have called him quietly and said, hey, would you mind talking me through what it's like to meet with Donald Trump and what your advice might be? I just want to game it out and it would be really helpful. And so he's done it. And he had a piece of advice, which was, if you ever get cornered and it gets a little intense, just ask to see the patio. He's really proud of the patio. And sure enough, this person that had been advised, and I don't want to say who it was, had been advised to how to prepare for his meeting with Trump. It got tense. There was some moment where things weren't going well. And so this person just said, hey, I've heard you've redone the patio and that it's really beautiful. Sure enough, guy lights up. Let me show you the patio. That may not be the most helpful advice, but it does point the way to something, right? Like if you see, what's his name? Mark Rutte, who is now the NATO leader. He's been deft, I think people have found, in how he's managed to have disagreements with Trump while keeping the relationship cordial. Now, this week, it's involved pretending that threatening Greenland doesn't mean that NATO is in crisis. So sometimes you can only stretch the cordiality so far. But there is something about remembering that at root, Donald Trump cares about how Donald Trump looks on television.
Yeah.
And that is about ego, and that is about saving face. And it's sad. it's sad because that's not diplomacy. That's flirting, basically. That's that because he doesn't care about the country, cares about himself. You put these foreign leaders in a position where they're not doing diplomacy. They're doing a personal relationship, and that's awful.
Yeah, or ego massage or version of that, yeah.
Yeah. So listen, I don't think anybody has cracked the code for how, one way to do it that a lot of American corporate leaders have figured out is you just bend the knee and bring him a gold statue. He loves that. But when you want to stand up for your country or your people or your values and you want to have a disagreement, it's a challenge because he doesn't have any respect for anything other than praise and people that want to help him look good and be on his team.
Just watching American politics from over here, it really seemed like the Democrats sort of didn't meet the moment at all.
No. That's the time difference. That's just the time difference. Over here, it's totally different.
Right.
You got to watch it on Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
Then you'll see they're doing amazing.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Chuck Schumer merges into an effective politician.
Oh, no. You guys have heard about him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I'm just wondering, were you guys pulling your hair out, looking at the response? I don't know. What was your take on what's happened in the last year with the Democrats?
So it is a struggle because you have to keep you have to have some nuance, which is we don't have a lot of power. We don't have the House. We don't have the Senate. We don't have the White House. And so I see when people make fun of Chuck Schumer for putting out a strongly worded statement. And I agree, the tone isn't always right. He's from another era. He's not the guy as a spokesperson, as a communicator. But at the same time, we just went through a shutdown of the U.S. government, something that happens more and more often these days. Again, another great sign of how things are going over here. But Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic leader, they decided to make the fight about healthcare. Now, there were some people who thought we shouldn't have the fight at all because it was a fight we couldn't win, which was true. And there were others who said, fighting over healthcare, they're weaponizing the Department of Justice. They're doing an immigration crackdown that's deeply unpopular. They're breaking the law. They're brazenly corrupt. They're gutting parts of our government without congressional approval. We need to make this fight about saving our democracy. And their point was, well, that means just deciding we're never going to vote yes to keep the government open. And A, they didn't have the votes, but B, they wanted to have a strategy that could possibly result in something. And so they chose healthcare. And we did lose that fight because we don't have the votes. And ultimately, enough Democrats folded and they got minor concessions. But that debate over healthcare really did change because of that. And a lot of Americans became aware of what Republicans were doing to undermine the healthcare system. And there was a lesson in that, which is even though we don't have a power, even though Donald Trump doesn't care about what Congress does, we were able to pick a fight. And as a result of being willing to fight, it focused the attention of the American people. That's what I hope can happen around immigration and a host of other issues. Do I think Chuck Schumer is the best communicator? No, but they picked that fight in a way that I think was successful. And I think it points to the kind of pushback that Democrats need to be showing.
The other thing from here, and this is going to sound really naive, but I looked at the killing of Renee Good in Minneapolis, and I was so shocked that I thought this has to be the catalyst. This has to be the moment that and I know thousands of people are protesting, but I just thought this must be it. And I was like, I'm looking on the New York Times, and there was a lot going on. There's Venezuela, but it didn't seem to me from here to be the kind of event that I thought it was going to be in terms of the response.
So, yeah, maybe it's because I'm in it. I don't come to expect any one moment to be it or to be the event. I think there's a couple of reasons for that I think to be fair about it. One is the media ecosystem is so fragmented and there's so much noise and there's so many people who get just right-wing news. And that will paint a very different picture of what happened and keep a lot of people on side. It's a little bit like a vaccination against leaving Donald Trump's Republican Party. But, and by the way, with that comes a lot of polarization in which there are just a lot of people that they're on their team and they're going to believe their side. But at the same time, no, it's not some single event that's changing our politics. But the majority of Americans, despite being exposed to a president lying about this, to an administration willing to smear somebody as a domestic terrorist after dropping their kid off at school and then losing their life, the majority of Americans do not believe that the killing of Renee Good was justified. For the first time, there's a poll out that shows more Americans support abolishing ICE than keeping it in place. That's extraordinary. A slogan that was derided as being like a ridiculous, lefty, unpopular position is now gaining a lot of support. Americans have become more pro-immigration generally. And so day by day, bit by bit, the fact that Donald Trump doesn't have some mass mobilization of public support behind him, it's mattering. No, there's not going to be one singular moment as heinous and as undeniable and awful as the killing of Renee Good is. But it does matter. And I think we all, I'm telling you as somebody that's in it here in the US, it is a challenge to feel as though you're in a situation that's so obvious and terrible, and yet the fight is so close. That is brutal. It is a brutal part of this. But that doesn't mean the fights aren't worth having, and it doesn't mean there aren't fights we can win. Trump backs down. He does. And political pressure works, and we'll have a midterm, and we'll have a chance to fight it out. But I do think day by day, the fact that Donald Trump is pursuing a dangerous, unpopular, chaotic agenda is not it is not making him stronger. Now, he may get more radical and dangerous as he gets weaker. I do think that's a real risk, but the politics of it is not working for him.
And on that, I know you might not like to make a prediction, but what do you think is likely to happen in the midterms?
Not in the prediction business anymore. It's part of why we made this show is because we felt like we were too focused on predicting what would happen rather than thinking about what we need right now to do to make sure we don't get the worst outcome. It is our job to make the best case against Donald Trump and put up the best candidates we can to make that case. And I think if we do that, we can win, but there's just no guarantees. There's not. It's a polarized country. It is a difficult media environment. There's a lot of cynicism out there. There's a lot of anger out there. But I hope we will use this upcoming election as an opportunity to remind Trump, Republicans, the country, the world, that the majority of Americans, whatever led us to this moment, are not on board with what's happening in this country.
I wanted to talk to you about the media environment. I was thinking the other day about, I think it was someone, maybe it was Pivot. I was listening to the Pivot podcast, and they were talking about how there's this whole ecosystem of people talking about the news and analysing, and that's really important. But sort of at the kind of base of all of that is some of the reporting of the thing that happened, which still goes on and still has to be funded. And it's really hard now, it's a very hard media environment for that to be funded. People have to go out, people have to do even if it's just like the New York Times doing a deep dive into Epstein's finances, or the Vanity Fair article on Susie Wiles, which took like a long time, visits after visits. That kind of journalism, it's hard to pay for that, but everybody else up above profits from it. I don't know. What do you have any ideas on that one?
I do. No, I think about it. I do. I think about it here because we do rely on, we rely on the Times and the big news outlets and the AP and local journalism, which is increasingly under strain to help us understand what's going on. And you look at what's happening right now in Minnesota, and you feel the decline of local news. You feel like you're missing the validators locally to help you parse all the footage you're seeing and social media videos that you're seeing, because you can't trust the government. They're being dishonest about what's happening, and they have such an agenda, and they don't respect any kind of semblance of honoring their obligation to explain what's happening. And we don't have the same amount of reporting as we would have had in the past. And you feel that. And we think about that. So we're increasingly trying to figure out how we can help support original reporting, and What A Day, our newsletter and our daily news podcast does do a fair amount of original reporting. But no, it's a genuine problem. Hey, does Australia feel guilty at all about unleashing Rupert Murdoch on us as sort of the world's news joker, just the funder and creator of so much of the right-wing ecosystem? What was going on down there when you made this thing? What was happening? Is it all the snakes? Like what was going on?
Well,
when you let this one out?
Can I say
is it vengeance on the world?
I mean, he's such a unique character, Rupert Murdoch, and also very old. I think he's incredibly enigmatic, because I think that if he's not someone that's obvious, like you can read him in a way like Trump, I think he's very private and enigmatic way to kind of, I don't know, he's a kind of hard guy to read in a way.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I just wanted to lastly ask you also about comedy, because the other thing that, I think is cutting through with Trump is comedy. He obviously feels very sensitive, about Jimmy Kimmel and those sorts of comedians. But do you think comedy has a role at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it cuts through, right? And that's what in a moment of when people are really trying to figure out how to get people's attention, jokes, humor, it just gets people's attention, and so that's valuable. Trump is funny. He is. And it's like when a politician is funny, it tells you something. Like when a joke works, because there's, you don't want to be too academic about jokes, but if a politician tells a joke and it works, it's a beautiful kind of subtext. It's to say, hey, we're on the same team. We share the same sense of the absurd. We share the same sense of the ridiculous. We get it. We get each other, because look at what I could surprise you and make you laugh, because we had a context we didn't even know we shared, right? That's a powerful thing about it. And if a joke bombs, it's the opposite. It's like, get the hell out of here. You don't know us. That sucks. And so, like, it has value, both like as a way of conveying information to people and making people pay attention, but also to show you're on the same side. So, like, of course it's a value, maybe more so when we're past the age of sound bites and people getting their news via a careful rundown of the facts in an article, a time we surely miss, but is not one we're going back to.
And what are you looking forward to when you come to Australia, besides maybe bumping into Rupert Murdoch? I don't think he's going to be here, by the way, but what are you looking forward to? I
think the show's probably after his bedtime. I'm excited. I've never been. We're going to Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and I'm so excited to see the cities. I'm excited to be in the like the sort of the wilds of Australia, if I can sort of get out of this. I've just never, I'm like, I have to like figure out, there's so many, I'm like so pumped that we get to do it. The only bummer is you have to do these fucking podcasts. But I am excited to see we did this show we did a couple shows in the UK and in Amsterdam, and actually in Sweden. And it was so funny because here we are halfway around the world, and we first would think, oh, I wonder if they're even going to be like, how much do they know about American politics? And then somebody got up and said, my question is about the 4th District of Pennsylvania. And so, look, I am sorry that American politics has become so unhinged that so many people around the world have to pay attention to it. I wish we could go back to the days when you guys didn't have to care as much about American politics, but that's not the world we're in. So I'm really excited to see all the friends of the pod down there. We have some great shows lined up. We're going to have some great guests, some very exciting no's, but we have some really great guests. And, we don't get, it's the first time we've ever been able to take the show to Australia. I can't believe we get to do it. So honestly, mostly I'm just excited that we get to do this. What a crazy thing that this podcast we started because we were mad about the news now gets to do shows all across Australia. It's amazing.
It's very cool. And as I said, we will welcome you to the land of universal healthcare, and hope that you enjoy your time here. And thanks for being on the podcast, Jon.
To read more of our in-depth journalism from the latest edition of Good Weekend, visit us at theage.com.au or smh.com.au. This episode was produced by Conrad Marshall and edited by Tim Mumry. Our executive producer is Tammy Mills. Lisa Muxworthy and Tom McKendrick oversee our podcasts. And Melissa Stevens is the editor of Good Weekend. If you enjoyed this episode, follow our podcast and leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Coming soon, we hear from Martin Luther King III, who joins Good Weekend senior writer Amanda Hooton. Thanks for listening.